We'll have to edit it out in the beginning when I go back here. All right. DJI drones, where are they? Why can't we find them? If you want to buy one, you probably know how hard it is recently to be able to find one. Well, I'm in the same boat. I don't know if anyone else here has been struggling to find DJI drones, but I'm fortunate enough to have two of them, and this is my Mini Pro 3 that I had bought about 2 years ago, a little after it first came out. But then also, if you're looking for a DJI Pocket 3, it's been a struggle. It's not something that's available in every store, and when they get available, they're disappearing awfully quick. So why is that? Why would that be? Well, there's several reasons, because I wanted to buy an ELGATO 2. And so I was recently looking myself to purchase an ELGATO 2. And I couldn't find it anywhere. I was like, what do you mean? You go to the website, you go to DJI. First, you couldn't find it at B&H. It says sold out everywhere. That's what it says. It just keeps on saying sold out wherever you go. So then you think, oh, maybe they're just struggling to get these back on the shelves. Maybe they're just selling out like crazy. Well, that's not really the case. The case is, it has to do with tariffs. Is it tariffs? And they're afraid to bring it in and have it on the shelves, whether or not people are going to have to pay a few $100s more for a drone. Well, that's what I thought. That's what I thought right off the bat, because if you're in the camera business, or you're doing YouTube, or a creator, you know that right off the bat, Canon, Sony, all the cameras that are out there that are available have gone up a few $100s. And so if you were lucky to buy an FX30 like I did right before these tariffs kicked in, then you're all good to go. But if you've missed that boat, it's $300 difference for some of these cameras. So I thought it was the tariffs. Okay, they're not going to bring them in because they don't want to get charged more. We want to see where this goes. There's not a lot of definite information about what's going on with these tariffs. So maybe they're just not bringing in a ton of them to figure out whether or not this is going to, come off of, because right off the bat, a lot of companies, they were taking care of the tariff prices. They were like, we'll absorb some of this. But there comes to a point where a lot of these companies, they don't want to lose customers, but they can't keep on absorbing for a net loss. Okay, so I can't be the tariffs, because I see all the other cameras, they're all out there, this and that. So I went to go take a look for myself. And what I found is basically it's our own government holding DJI back. Whether or not this has to do with anything that I've done some live streams on this past year with the drones off the coastline of New Jersey and etc. And we were all told that it's our own government and we have nothing to worry about. I'm not so sure. Maybe this is like their way of hammering back at DJI for some reason, if there's anything involved. And I'm just speculating, because why would you just pick out the biggest maker of drones out of all the Chinese drones? Because not all the Chinese drones are banned. It's just DJI. And DJI is the biggest company who sells the most amount of drones and is the leader of the market. So also, if we are looking to take over some of that market in America, oh, well, why wouldn't it be great if you could limit the amount of DJI being sold here and take over some of that market? Because America is about 30 to 35% of DJI's market. So we're a big chunk. And so are we just trying to bully them and have control? Or are we really worried about what we've been talking about 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, about the security and the spying with the DJI products? So then if that's the case, then why aren't other Chinese drones banned? That's the first thing that I would like to ask is, why aren't there any other Chinese drones banned? And we don't really have a clear answer. They're saying there might be others to follow, but we haven't gotten any answers whether or not that's going to be true or not. And so really a lot of this is manipulation and lobbyists and our own government, who is, if you take a look at our government and you take the average age of a congressman, if anybody wants to take a guess and drop that into the chat, then go ahead. And then you could take the average age of a senator on top of that and see what you get. Now, just remember, these are most of the people who don't know how to use tech, who don't know how to use. These are the same people 30 years ago in a different era who didn't know how to set the time on their VCRs, peeps. So they're giving us control on our technology based off of nothing that they probably know. So the average age of a congressman is 58 years old, and the average age of a senator is even older at the age of 64. So basically, most of these people don't even know how to use a lot of technology. And so what we have is a lot of lobbying going on. Lobbying is one of the evils of our society, and we allow it for some absurd reasons, that's for sure. But the lobbying that's going on is also very controlled by people, that powerful companies who are already vested in America. And so it's kind of odd because a lot of these companies who have contracts are on the board of these lobbying companies. So this is very interesting. So you know where I'm getting to with all this stuff is that basically it's manipulation and control. So this year, 2025, I should say, the president enacted 2 orders that he put in place. It wasn't voted on. It was just 2 orders that he had put in place. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't be careful or we shouldn't worry about whether we're being spied upon from different companies. But the fact of the matter is, we've gone through this. We have Chinese phones with Chinese technology. We have Chinese PCs. We have other Chinese drone companies who aren't banned. We have other companies that made phones that we've banned them, and they were controlling and getting into our cellular system. But then all of a sudden, none of these other companies are banned. So it's just kind of odd that they're picking the biggest, company to ban, which is, they said they're not going to do anything for Samsung, this and that. We're just going to make DJI jump through a bunch of hoops. And that's all fine and dandy if you are going to do that and you want transparency, because everybody wants transparency, right? But when I've looked up this recent article that I've just come across, this is only from 2 days ago. It talks about DJI. Can't find anyone in the US government to talk about the potential ban. There's literally almost no information coming from our government discussing any of this information. But we can see Bloomberg says that DJI has been trying to contact US authorities to discuss necessary audit and its business before the National Defense Authorization Act. That was the act that was instilled in June, which is only 2 months ago. And then they said that this effect at the end of 2025 is going to be pressing forward. And if they don't get the information that they want from DJI, then we can go possibly have a ban at that point. But we can see that the problem is that there's a DJI representative in this discussion talking about how he's been in Washington and he hasn't found anybody to discuss anything or find anybody to discuss anything, and they're not looking to make any contact along with DJI with the above matters. And so this is kind of a couple things. And here, this is where I'm talking about here in this article also, is that in June, President Trump signed 2 executive orders aimed at boosting U.S. drone industry and shoring up protections against malicious drone activity. So we see that there's 2 things going on here. And it's kind of interesting how you say boosting of the U.S. drone industry. So if you're holding back the biggest maker of drones who claims the biggest chunk of the industry. It's kind of interesting how that's what's really going on behind the scenes, and pretty interesting. And then also, this official also went to go try to find some people to talk to, and he said that they were confirming at the government officials who confirmed that they wouldn't be willing to meet with DJI. So they're not willing to meet and discuss these things. They're kind of like leaving them on the back burner with almost no time, almost like they want to have a short ban in effect, possibly, until people are PO'd or someone raises an eye or bats an eye. But the truth of the matter is, DJI is on the verge of claiming a lot of markets, but you can't. That's free market society that is being controlled and manipulated. And this is what's constantly happening with certain government issues, right? But then it goes on to say the DJI got no one to talk to, but Florida's Republican Senator Rick Scott. Okay, he said he wouldn't speak to the brand as the Chinese government wants to spy on U.S. citizens. So even though they don't have any definite information about if that is actually happening, this is what the representation from America is saying about DJI. So this is when you don't have any proof to anything, and then you speculate and you have these kinds of answers. I just worry about whether or not we should be okay with that. So the question is, how long is this going to go on? Are they going to control and manipulate this? We have no answers. There's absolutely no answers. But everywhere around the world, you can buy DJI drones. In other countries, everywhere, they can be found except for here. And you're going to have struggled to find also the Pocket 3 and some of the other products that DJI makes. And we're not really sure how long this is going to go on for. We can't say. But as a free market economy, seeing what's going on, you should be worried whether or not our own government, which I understand by lobbying, they've been manipulating this for decades and decades. But more people need to realize that how powerful some of these lobbying groups are. And they're really basically controlling a huge part of America in a lot of different ways. So that's the question, whether or not you should be worried if our government is controlling or manipulating the sales of information. So that's where I think we should be worried, because when you're picking one company out, whether it's you're going to pick Tesla out, or you're going to pick, Apple out, or you're going to pick anybody out individually, and you're not going to cover a broad span of what you're talking about, because Accutel is out there selling their drones to the consumer markets, and no one is saying a word about that. But I wonder if people should be pressing this issue more and more. So Jim, thanks for stopping in. I see you're saying Borg drones are the best. I guess it really all depends, because they're not even used at all with most of the creator stuff that goes on out there. If you're talking farming, sure, there's different types of drones for different types of stuff. And we're really talking about what worries people the most is the privacy issues. And if that was the truth about everything, then we should be absolutely worried about our washer and dryer that has internet connectivity, and whether or not that's being controlled behind our backs or not, right? Because it very well can be. And then our TVs for that matter, and then our phones for that matter, and then our webcams for that matter, and all the cameras that are made that aren't Japanese or another company. We should be worrying about all that stuff. So just to pick one company out is definitely an issue for me, and it should be for the rest of the people here. And we should be really not thrilled about it unless they're willing to give us factual information, not hearsay, not what they think. Because I'm telling you right now, I've worked in government buildings, I've worked in areas where they do technology, and the government with technology and most things are way behind when it comes to, state government and The only thing that's really pushed far ahead are the Intel systems of our nation, and what's the most important, but a lot of the things that are technology based are decades behind a lot of things. So that's the real reason why I can't find my new drone and why I have to wait for an Avata 2 a little bit longer, or I have to reach out to a third party company from either a different country, etc., etc. But just so you know this, that doesn't make it a guarantee you're going to get that drone, because what they're doing is they're stopping them at the borders and border patrol, and is stopping any packages that are including drones, and they're holding them, and a lot of times they're not able to even be brought back into this country. So if that's the case, then it's a full control no matter what, and you're just going to have to wait out to see what your government is going to do. But I just want it to be known, if you were like me in the beginning and you thought it was just the tariffs, then you were pretty much wrong about that whole thing. And it had nothing to do with the tariffs. And all we would have seen probably was a bump in pricing if that was the case, because that's what I've seen across the board with all the cameras that are out there. They've gotten a $200 to $300 bump, or a 20 to 30% increase in cost to the consumer. So I just want to talk about that for a short period, because I know that this is just breaking out now, and a lot of people have been wondering about these things and wondering why we can't find DJI products anywhere, because when you go to the websites, it just says sold out, and that's all it says basically. And then you go to DJI and it's saying not sold in your region, and there's only so many drones that are. So that's very confusing too. So that's all I have to say about this, but I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day, and I hope you give me a like if you end up watching this, and now you are notified for the real reason why this is happening. So everybody have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon.